I look around here in this classroom and I see some of the strongest, smartest men who've ever bloody lived. I see all the potential and I see squandering. God darn it. It's an entire generation pumping gas and waiting tables. Slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes and working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we can buy stuff we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man. With no purpose or place. We have no great war. We've had no Great Depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our bloody lives. We've all been raised by television to believe that one day we'll be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. And we're slowly learning that fact, and we're very PO'd. We're so darn ticked off at this that we fly into a rage.
See, the only problem with putting Jordan Peterson right into Fight Club is that Jordan Peterson thinks that consumption is good, especially when it comes to fossil fuels. He is like, glug, glug, I want to drink the dino juice.
Right.
It would be hard to fit that into the Fight Club ideology, even as confused as it is.
Well, he's an accelerationist, I want to be cooking venison on the bloody highway. And I can only do that once civilization has fallen apart, which he definitely does not believe in, by the way. I think he's a big civilization good guy.
Yeah, it's always an interesting mix. It's civilization's good. Everything that led us to this point is good. This point we're at, though, no, that's bad. We need to go back 20 years, and for some reason, this won't repeat again.
I think consumption is also a thing he had.
One of the most Tyler Durden-y things Peterson has posted recently, there was a city in New Jersey that, through some very, very basic interventions in their planning, reduced pedestrian fatalities to zero by just eliminating parking at intersections. This is called daylighting, so that there's more daylight for drivers to see pedestrians. And the Associated Press tweeted out, New Jersey municipality ends pedestrian fatality over a period of a decade. And Peterson retweeted this with the caption, "The woke mob will come for you too, AP." Sorry, is woke to not die in preventable car accidents now? What the fuck?
No, because it's making men not hard.
Yeah.
That's natural selection you're getting rid of by not just mowing children down in your F-150.
Peterson's version of the Fight Club is every intersection in Stroke.
It used to be that men were hit by cars 3-4 times a year. But now they're gelatinous slobs because they've never been run over.
It's Britney, bitch.
And Iraq, everywhere, such as.
I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Out, Charlie! Out!
Our next door neighbors are foreign countries.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Learned a lot of chemistry from this movie. It's kind of an educational piece if you think about it. They should show this in high school.
Yeah, in the 90s, people seem to be very into subversive chemistry with the anarchist cookbook and this movie. If you think about the figures of the era, right? People like the Unabomber.
And I do.
Listen, man, that guy deserved to die in jail for writing such a boring ass fucking manifesto. That's my hot take.
Transitioning could have saved her. Seriously, Ted Kaczynski went to a gender clinic in the 70s before being the Unabomber or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. And then bitched out just before going in for the appointment.
Oh, unbelievable.
And the bombs worked.
Yes.
Right, unlike the book.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for giving me a good movie to watch. At long last. I think I really needed that cleansing.
It was just nice to see Brad Pitt's back in this movie.
Oh, Maron.
That back,
God,
my
so
gosh. Yeah.
Jesus.
Okay,
So you're Brad Pitt. That don't impress me much.
I remember I was really into Brad Pitt's physique. I think actually 2 of the posters that I had on my dorm room wall, he was shirtless. Both the Snatch one and this one, the Fight Club one. Because he's one of the few I find like ectomorphs that is kind of known for his body. We may never see another ectomorph in a movie ever again because we'll just pump them full of human growth hormone until they have a V-shaped torso. It'll be all like Kumail Nanjiani's and Chris Hemsworth's.
Yep.
Whereas like Brad Pitt is what? Like he's like 155 pounds in this movie, and yet he looks good.
Yeah, I also looked that up.
I don't know. That's an eyeball guess.
Yeah. How tall is he?
5'11". I don't know. Well, it was the 90s, right? Everybody had a heroin chic physique.
Damn, Giordano, we got to get you at a motherfucking carnival. 'Cause Google says he is exactly 5'11".
Well, it's not like I stared at him on my dorm room wall every night before going to sleep.
It's like that scene in American Psycho when he's looking at himself in the mirror while having sex, except Giordano's looking at a poster of Brad Pitt while he has sex in his college dorm room.
Yeah, well, Christian Bale, well-known mesomorph. Okay. Except for in The Machinist, I guess. But it has nothing to do with your actual physique and more to do with like your bone proportions and your skull shape.
Yeah, I've been waiting for us to get there.
Yeah, I gotta say, this movie rocks. 4.5 stars. And if you didn't like this movie, you know what? Listen, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts on Fight Club. All of them just shitting on this movie, talking about how it wasn't good enough. And I gotta say to these people, you know who you are? You're in the Guyvery Tower, okay? You're sitting up there, you're talking about, oh, I don't know that the film did enough to advance cinema. But whatever happened to watching a movie and trying to have a good time? Nobody's trying to have a good time anymore.
Kind of what the movie's about, if you think about it.
Truly. It's a fun movie about having a good time with the boys.
Exactly. Yep. You know what they're not doing in that house? Critical analyses. This is a great movie to make a bomb to. This is a great movie to smoke cigarettes shirtless with your boys too. All right, do you guys feel sufficiently pleasant? Should we get going?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Remember Shuffle. My name is Ben. With me, as always, is my co-host, Giordano.
Oh, my God, I don't have a voice. I didn't think of anything. Oh, fuck. Okay, all right. Yeah, let me... Hello, I'm quite happy to be here today. There's a lot of young men in your audience who I find were not socialized well enough because they weren't engaged in rough play. And I'm here to tell them a thing or two about some of the benefits that males have to engage with, or else they grow up awkward. That's my Giordano Peterson.
Giordano Peterson, everyone. Thank you. And today we will be discussing Fight Club. This is an episode that Giordano has been excited about pretty much since we've started the pod. And to analyze this beautiful, nearly perfect film, we are joined by 2 good friends of ours. Maybe the narrator to Kyle's Tyler Durden of Remember Shuffle Guest.
No, come on, man.
And then Kyle's in the lead, which makes JD narrator.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
What did you think I was saying about him?
I thought you were attacking his character.
Oh.
Sort of describing Kyle as like a blonde, cool guy.
Say hi, JD.
I am Kyle's bad episode.
And we are also joined by a great friend of ours, I believe a first time, long time, Maddie. Say hi, Maddie.
Oh, hey. Just here to tell you that if you argue with them in the comments long enough, they will let you on the pod. So make sure to do that.
All right, so Giordano, since you're the brains behind this operation on this episode, walk us through why Fight Club? Why this 1999 movie on our 2000s pod?
Yeah, so exactly. I know what you're thinking. Fight Club. This is a 90s movie. It feels like a 90s movie, right? But what we have to always remember about the 2000s is that a full 15% of the 2000s actually took place before 9/11, and nobody ever talks about this poor 15%. That it still existed in this moment before 9/11. What we've kind of been referring to as this end of history moment. This point where the Berlin Wall has fallen, neoliberal capitalism has triumphed, We're richer than we've ever been. We have a surplus, and yet everybody finds themselves angsty and sort of unfulfilled and surprised that their newfound wealth and confidence that comes with the fact that they figured out society with neoliberal democracy isn't making them as happy as they can be. And I'm not just generalizing here and saying that everybody felt this way, because consider this, guys. There are 4 movies that came out in 1999. One of them won Best Picture. But Fight Club, Office Space, The Matrix, and American Beauty. Every single one of these movies deals with the exact same thing. They all feature a scene where the protagonist is sitting in a cubicle, numb to life, alienated, and wondering, what is the point of all of this? What is the point of this fucking unfulfilling life I'm living? When we want to talk about the 2000s, it's important to remember where the 2000s is starting from. Before we got into the war on terror, before somebody, there was a hint that, hey, maybe somebody else has some ideas out there that aren't a neoliberal democracy. So that's why I want to talk about Fight Club, because I think it's a perfect encapsulation of the types of movies that were coming out in the year 2000 and 1999, describing the spiritual malaise that we found ourselves in. So that's why I want to talk about this movie.
Sweet. Yeah. I would also add, in terms of our list of works that have this kind of angsty ennui, The Strokes, their first album, the rock band has a first album that's called Is This It? Truly. I just want to list these 4 movies one more time. Fight Club, Office Space, Matrix, American Beauty. What are their programs that they offer? Office Space is don't care, like stop caring about your job and become a construction worker. Probably the most positive. The Matrix is
transition.
Yeah, transition.
yeah, there we go. That's right. Yeah, The Matrix's prescription is transition.
Yeah.
Fight Club is start terrorism, and American Beauty is fuck a teenager. Those 4 paths lay before you. Jesus Christ. Yeah, where's the 1999 drama about organizing your workplace?
And I'll keep going here. Sorry to railroad us, but I've been keeping this in for 18 months, and I've been like the kid with the vein in his forehead. So I think this is like a really good movie at showcasing one of my favorite examples of Mark Fisher's capitalist realism, because in that book, he argues that at this point in history, and even like continuing today, it's almost impossible to imagine an alternative to capitalism. Right? That's why we can't imagine a future that isn't Children of Men or something. And so what you get, especially at this moment when this belief is kind of at its strongest, is the politics of Gen X, which are so funny. So funny, because they're living in this system that is totally committed to capitalism. And so they have no idea, they can't even conceive of another system. And so their political ideology is just taking swings in the dark at anything. It's consumerism. It's the New World Order. It's globalization. There's never any sense of class politics or political prescription that isn't I fucking hate my furniture. God damn it.
The thing is that it's just all negative. It's a politics of rejection. We don't like consumerism. Mm-hmm. We don't like whatever, the fucking rat race. There may be elements of the economic system that we don't like, but it's not proscriptive or prescriptive. One of those. It doesn't advance a positive vision of what it is. It's just a total view of rejection. And another major point of Mark Fisher is this is part of how capitalism defends itself by presenting itself as a logical kind of telos, an end unto itself, that there is no alternative even to be imagined, that can be imagined. So if that is what you are up against, it's just going to manifest in this fuck off rejection that we see very well represented in this film.
Yeah, a huge part of it too is this is the ultimate victory of Margaret Thatcher's there is no society, there is only the individual. Mm-hmm. Because when people view themselves as a consumer, they don't view themselves as part of a group or anything. They view themselves entirely as someone who has a relationship to a product. They don't view themselves I sell my labor for wages, whatever, along with all my other people and inherent interests. So there becomes all this mixed up class stuff where suddenly a small business tyrant and a union worker have the same interests, quote unquote, because oh, hey, we're both consumers, we both buy shit, but it completely papers over distribution of power.
Yeah, even the rebellious people at this time are still thinking at the individual level. If you look at like something like Ross Perot's campaign or the politics of this movie, all of the ideology is rooted in the individual. How do I be on the frontier supporting myself? Mm-hmm. They're like libertarians, basically.
Yeah, it is very funny. I love the base premise that we start off with. Like, consumerism is hollow. There's so many great fucking angsty, nihilistic lines that as a teenager I thought were so goddamn deep. Like, everything's so fake now. Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy. And it's very funny just to see the logical leap from like, yes, everything is bad. Yes, consumerism will not satisfy you. Yes, it is a hedonic treadmill that you can never get off. So let's fight each other. It's like, it reminds me of the fucking underpants gnomes from South Park. Like, step 2, ? Step 3, Fight Club.
Okay, I'm countering that from it being pointless is that you're so numb to everything that the only way you can experience any sort of intimacy is through like extreme violence towards each other.
Yes.
Or in my reading, gay sex. But
Yes.
I do want to just set up one through line, though, for the entire episode. One more through line, which is just this both book and movie's very conflicted relationship with what satire should be. Because satire normally it's a lot clearer with the author's intent. If you look at something like The Colbert Report or The Sopranos or something, it's easy to be like, oh, this person is saying dumb things, but they're a dumb person, and I'm like laughing at it, and I'm sort of getting the author's intent. This book and movie are so confusing because sometimes the protagonist is speaking very sincerely and you agree with them, but then other times you're meant to take it as satire, and you have to apply like a scalpel to see which parts of the character are meant to be sincere and which parts are meant to be laughed at.
You've probably seen this absolutely horrendous meme, and I use that term very loosely, where it'll be a photo of the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, it'll be a photo of Christian Bale's Patrick Bateman, Tony Soprano, and of course Tyler Durden from Fight Club. It'll have some heinous caption to the effect of the, quote, if you idolize them, you miss the point of the movie, end quote, starter pack. And it has Tyler Durden up here. And what I would say is that I don't think Tyler Durden necessarily belongs up there on that list, because sometimes when he's spitting facts, that is what Chuck Palahniuk legitimately believes.
Yes.
Right? It is not the taking the position that we want to mock and taking it to an absurd extreme. I mean, it is sometimes, and also it is genuinely him preaching truth. You know, we are the middle children of history, dude. The movie's fucking deep.
Yeah.
I found this entire movie, the entire time, impossible to suss out what sorts of views being put forth are these sincere views of the movie and which ones are meant to be, as you said, like laughed at. Mm-hmm. And I found the movie to be better for it. It caused me to just sit back and enjoy the ride. They're just saying a bunch of quotable shit that may or may not actually make sense, and I loved it.
It is a movie that sounds and looks fucking cool, which in our age of CGI smoothing, this was such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Forgive this hack bit, but when it comes to the movie's relationship with satire, it's almost as if the authors have some kind of split personality about what is sincere and what is satirical. And it's like they're trying to wrestle between these two versions of themselves. I don't know, just something I noticed.
Yeah, so just to roadmap a little bit for the episode, I'll do a very quick plot summary because I just think I'd rather talk about the themes in this one. And hey, I mean, you guys have all seen Fight Club, right? No one has escaped this movie. So the themes that we'll talk about, we got the political ideology of this movie. We'll start with that. Anti-consumerism. Then we'll move on to masculinity, its connection to the alt-right, the film's thoughts on class politics, and nihilism. And then we'll finish off with some discussions on like the actual style of the movie. And then, yeah, we'll just wrap it up with another talk about everyone's favorite subject, post-structuralism. Yeah, let's get started. I'll do a quick recap of the plot summary, just in case you haven't seen this since you watched it stoned in high school. So the narrator has had trouble sleeping. Okay, he's our main character.
Played by Ed Norton.
He's depressed, and he starts attending support groups for those with illnesses. And the emotional intimacy he experiences at these support groups temporarily relieves his insomnia. He feels close to others. He cries tries with them. He talks about his feeling. But soon, Marla, the feminine chaos, starts attending these meetings and ruins the experience of intimacy for him. And he relapses into insomnia.
I gotta jump in because I gotta push back. Marla is the most stable person in this movie. Objectively. She is not the feminine chaos dragon, in fact.
Yeah, I guess to him, right?
Yeah.
To him.
He sees her as chaos.
Yeah, so once he starts relapsing into insomnia, he then meets Tyler Durden on a plane through his job as sort of a cost-benefit analysis for a horrific job at a company that has to decide if they're going to do a recall based on how much it'll cost just to pay people off. But he meets Tyler on a plane, and Tyler seems to embody confidence and primal power and everything the narrator is not. And after the narrator's apartment blows up, he asks Tyler if he can stay with him, and Tyler agrees on one condition, that the narrator hits him as hard as he can. And the narrator begins a fight club with Tyler. Soon they're joined by others, and fighting provides these men with a form of primal therapy. Fighting makes them feel alive and powerful, and the anxieties of modern life just melt away. Their fight club eventually becomes a cult of nihilism, and they perform public acts of sabotage and pranks, and eventually getting onto the news and expanding to other cities. Eventually, the narrator comes to find out that Tyler and himself are in fact the same person.
Spoiler alert.
And Tyler is merely a projection of his idealized version of himself, which he performs while he's sleeping. So as Fight Club's Project Mayhem sets up a bombing of the credit card companies, the narrator confronts Tyler, shooting himself through the cheek, killing Tyler, but unable to stop the bombs, and watches with Marla as they go off to the Pixies.
Yes.
So that's a quick recap. Honestly, I don't want that to take very long because the plot of the movie is going to come up as we talk about the themes. So let's start off maybe with the anti-consumerist message of the film, because I think that is probably the shallowest message in the movie, and that it's spelt out the most explicitly.
Yep.
When you buy furniture, you tell yourself, that's it, that's the last sofa I'm gonna need. Whatever else happens, I've got that sofa problem handled. I had it all. I had a stereo that was very decent, a wardrobe that was getting very respectable. I was close to being complete.
Shit, man, now it's all gone.
All gone.
No. What are we then?
We're, consumers.
Right. We are consumers. We are byproducts of a lifestyle obsession. Murder, crime, poverty, these things don't concern me. What concerns me are celebrity magazines, television with 500 channels, some guy's name on my underwear. Rogaine, Viagra, Olestra.
Martha Stewart.
Fuck Martha Stewart. Martha's polishing the brass on the Titanic. It's all going down, man. So fuck off with your sofa units and string green stripe patterns. I say never be complete. I say stop being perfect. I say let's evolve. Let the chips fall where they may. The things you own end up owning you.
I was kind of thinking a lot of like that Louis C.K. bit that he sort of blew up over with this movie. But, you know his bit about how everything's awesome and we're all unhappy.
Yep.
About like flying.
You're sitting in a chair in the sky. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's this montage of Ed Norton on a plane, and it's just presented so bleakly. But he's like, life was actually so much better back then. He's getting a meal on a domestic flight. He's like got all this space on his chair. He's not herded onto the plane like cattle. He's staying at nice hotels. And yet still he's miserable. He hates his life. Mm-hmm. These rising material conditions have done nothing for his fulfillment. And yeah, we get a lot of lines like Tyler saying the space station in the future is going to be sponsored. We're going to have Planet Starbucks.
When deep space exploration ramps up, it'll be the corporations that name everything. The IBM Stellar Sphere, the Microsoft Galaxy, Planet Starbucks.
Yeah,
these are the anti-consumerism lines that are spelled out pretty explicitly. And in high school, were pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. IKEA gets a lot of ire.
Yo, yeah.
From Chuck Palahniuk in this film. There's a scene where, again, very explicitly, very surface level, we see Ed Norton, the narrator. He's got like a fold-out magazine like it's pornography as he's sitting in the bathroom, and you think he's jacking it. And he's got phone. You think he might be doing phone sex, but he is literally phone purchasing IKEA IKEA stuff. And he says, and here's where I think the movie's kind of prescient. He says, we used to read pornography, but now we're too depressed for it. This is the Zoomers not fucking 20 years ago. They called it. I don't want to get us off this point, but like, you could swap out the consumerism angle for social media addiction and whatnot, and this movie would work just the same now. Because now we can't even buy stuff. We just scroll. Maybe even taking away our treats. But it's the idea that like the pleasure of buying has replaced the pleasure of sex, and that's what we're pursuing now. You could easily swap that with social media hits, or like in the inevitable 2020 remake, it's like instead of trying to get the perfect IKEA thing for his apartment, like the narrator says at one point, I almost had purchased everything that I needed. I almost got off the treadmill. Yeah, in the 2020 Zoomer remake, it's like, I almost had the perfect post. I just needed like 1,000 more views, 1,000 more likes. I would have been there. The Fight Club is about trying to get off the social media addiction. Because again,
yes,
life has gotten worse.
I almost had the perfect Instagram profile.
Over a long enough timeline, everyone's engagement drops to 0.
I almost had every subscription I needed. I was so close.
And yeah, this anti-consumerism angle is there front and center at the beginning because it's what makes the narrator so dissatisfied. And then as Fight Club morphs into Project Mayhem, their primary goal is to destroy the records of debt, to wipe the slate clean. Because this consumerism is also wrapped up in power and hierarchies. But some of the pranks, some of the japes that they do are pretty cringy and eye-rolly because they talk in this very militaristic kind of language because it is just like a terrorism death cult that's broken up into independent cells. But they're like, it was a perfect operation, sir. Sabotage a piece of soulless corporate art and run it into a franchise restauant or whatever.
It's like Adbusters meets revolutionary terrorism.
Yes, exactly. I wrote in my notes, this is just Adbusters shit. I mean, yeah, that's like one of the main things the movie is about, is this anti-consumerist angle.
Yeah, it's like the most essay thing. All the anti-consumerism just reminds me of sitting on break at 3 a.m. in my car with my coworker smoking weed and being like, man, that's fucked, man. I hate this.
Trying to think of a terrorist group that I can put with Adbusters, and I can't. Is there anything that has the AD sound in a terrorist group? Al-Shabaab Busters?
Islamic Jihad Busters.
Yeah, Jihad Busters. That's good. That's good stuff.
Islamist Fight Club, I'm in, you know? It was the secularism of the Fight Club that was keeping me from joining, but now that I know that it's in the service of Allah, I'm in.
You know, I can think of a young man that had something of a Fight Club himself. You know, he met with a bunch of guys, didn't speak to women, talked about how much they hated the American way of life. Before we move on from consumerism, I just want to read you guys a review from something of a film critic. He was interviewed by Roger Ebert because he had screened this movie at the White House. Because, of course, I am talking about the big dog himself, William Clinton, who said of this movie, it was quite good. The film began with an attack on prosperity, which its heroes found so empty that they founded secret clubs which they could seek meaning in their lives by beating one another up. Which, I gotta say, pretty succinct description. Bill Clinton went on. Norton and Pitt played their roles very well, and Helena Bonham Carter was a very compelling figure in it. But it was a little too nihilist for me. It is simply not true that the material advances we've had are inherently bad or empty. They give you the power to define your own life more. And I don't just mean for rich people. I mean for people who have a decent middle-class life. It's not all there is to life, but it creates the possibility of fashion in a life that has integrity and meaning. I wonder, why suburbia always is such a punching bag in the movies? I mentioned American Beauty, a frontrunner for this year's Oscar nominations. I think in a funny way, it's like Fight Club. It's like, there's got to be more to life than this. Okay, so I've got this nice little suburban lifestyle and we're comfortable. And now what? It was also a disturbing movie, and I thought it was an amazing film. Kevin Spacey was amazing. The kids were just great.
Oh, no!
Yeah, I bet Bill Clinton liked the kids in American Beauty. I bet he liked one scene in American Beauty in particular. Did he say what he thought about the scene in Fight Club where they show a child a penis?
There was one frame in the movie I liked specifically.
One frame.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd give you guys that little review. Oh, by the way, shout out to Michael and us for introducing me to that review from Bill Clinton. I thought was just the perfect person to review that movie.
That is incredible. Him having to defend his record from Fight Club. The economy I built us isn't that bad. We have a $5 trillion surplus. Don't start fight clubs.
I couldn't help but feel partly responsible for that angst. I was in a couple underground clubs myself. Satanic rituals will go on as long as they have to.
I'm trying to think of what would an equivalent thing be? It would be I don't know, would it be showing Nixon Full Metal Jacket or Apocalypse Now?
True.
It'd be it was a great film, but the war in Vietnam wasn't that bad.
Yeah, exactly. What is the equivalent? Showing Reagan season 2 of The Wire. Yeah, that's a funny bit, though, of showing someone the art that is criticizing them the most.
Yeah, who else could we do?
We made George Bush listen to American Idiot.
we send him the motherfucking Broadway musical.
Yeah.
You show George Bush Loose Change and just watch him. Watch his reaction. Ringing any bells?
Okay. All right, cool. Anything else on consumerism, or should we move on?
Let's move on to masculinity.
All righty.
Finally.
Do you know what a duvet is?
Comforter.
It's a blanket. Just a blanket. Now, why do guys like you and I know what a duvet is? Is this essential to our survival in the hunter-gatherer sense of the word?
Actually, I want to start this off because Giordano pointed out that the narrator starts going to therapy, and he essentially gets addicted to this vulnerability, to this human connection that he feels between people there. But the therapy is highly feminine coded in this. All this talking, even to the point that, as Giordano points out, the one that we see the most involves Bob with breasts. And then we, of course, have the opposite, the very masculine, primal coded Fight Club. And what I love is that this scene has a fucking red pill, blue pill moment. When the narrator comes back to his blown up apartment, he goes to a payphone and he has 2 cards. He has 2 numbers that he can call. One is Marla, the woman whom he knows from therapy, from group therapy. And one is Tyler Durden, the man, the projection. 2 roads, 2 choices, red pill, blue pill. Does he seek the real human connection, or does he pursue the fantasy of Tyler Durden? And our narrator, of course, chooses the latter.
Yeah, this was the point where I was seriously feeling like Pepe Sylvia watching this movie. This movie and book both present this gendered argument that therapy is for women and talking about your feelings is for women, and the Fight Club is for men, and ultimately the more successful form of therapy. Because it's just insane that the book and movie, of all of the support groups he chooses to go to, it specifically spends 90% of the time at a group called Men Remaining Men, where his closest friend, again, that they spend the most time talking about, is a guy who is growing breasts from having too much estrogen, who hugs him and cries and tells him his feelings. And the narrator says that it makes my dick soft or something.
Strangers with this kind of honesty make me go a big rubbery one.
Go ahead. You can cry.
Yeah, which yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be hard at therapy to be.
Don't tell me how to live my life, Giordano.
And I'll point out, I've told a few people this, and they've told me that I was an idiot, but I will point out that in the book, the narrator later goes back to the Men Remaining Men therapy group, and what does he find? He finds that it's empty. All of the guys there are now attending Fight Club as a substitute, and are finding obviously more pleasure in that because they're not attending the therapy sessions anymore. They're punching each other, and that is giving them the same kind of primal satisfaction that crying into a man's chest formerly gave them.
Okay, I think a big reason for it being the Men Remaining Men or whatever with testicular cancer is it's a metaphor for how modern society castrates men as you can't go oh yeah, I'm going to go beat the shit out of someone and go rape and pillage a village for fun. You got to go to your shitty office job.
Exactly. I listened to Chuck Palahniuk on Joe Rogan, and this was basically what he said. And well, Joe Rogan was also saying this mostly, but like, you know, guys, like we weren't meant to be in the office. We were meant to be like wrestling tigers and using our bodies and trusting them to do violence. And we don't have any trust in our bodies anymore to do anything. And it's causing us a lot of psychological damage.
See, that's like way better than I imagined it being. I imagined something to this effect. Chuck Palahniuk, hey, Joe, did you know that life is meaningless and absurd and there is no God? And Joe goes, whoa, that's crazy. Say more.
I'd like to point out that Fight Club itself still is not an organic and wholesome expression of that, like, living as a mammoth hunter masculinity. It's like a hamster wheel of that masculinity where, like, we still don't get to chase down mammoths or whatever in the field, but we can, like, run on this hamster wheel of just smashing each other, experiencing pain and injury, and experiencing also doing it to others. But it's still, like, it's just a treadmill. It's a stair stepper of the masculine experience that these guys are seeking. It still sucks.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I think that Chuck Palahniuk describing this, I actually like lost a lot of respect for him because it's like, yeah, but they're not learning anything. They're just hitting each other and desecrating their own bodies. If that's your point, then like, why didn't he just, I don't know, join like a BJJ class or something?
It's 1999. It wasn't big yet, dude.
Right.
It wasn't an option. I don't want to sound like a total hand job about this, but this is like...
There's nothing wrong with a hand job.
It's way easier to go to a fight club than it is to be vulnerable, guys. It's actually harder in a lot of ways. It's actually harder in a lot of ways to be vulnerable and talk about your feelings. It is to just beat someone and get beat up to feel something.
So, Maddie, you had a really good point about this movie, which is that this movie, honestly, is a perfect example of something we love on this show, of being like a prototype for something that's become very common now. And I think that this is the example of the Bronze Age pervert movie. I think that there's a lot of connection between this movie and, you know, statuavy alt-right guys. And it's just very funny because I think that this movie more sincerely subscribes to the idea of the Bronze Age pervert than these modern guys do, because they went all the way with it. It's like, should you care about women? No. Should you spend all of your time fighting with your boys? Yes.
Fighting or fucking. Depends on your reading.
Should you spend all your time also fucking your boys? And I think that this movie is also saying yes, emphatically, to that question, because there is a litany of homoerotic imagery in this movie.
Literally, the scene after Tyler and the narrator have their first fight and they're just kind of sitting on the curb and like, so should we like do this again sometime? I'm like, oh, hey, that's like the first time I slept with a man. I was exactly that vibe.
And there are so many other cues, like the way that they take off their belts before a fight, the way that like they zoom in on it and it comes off very close. It was extremely sexual.
Yep. Pop off their wedding rings too.
They take off their wedding rings as well. Yes.
I mean, as early as the first fight scene, right? Okay, Tyler has the narrator hit him and he's got a brace for it and it sucks and he experiences displeasure at it. And then Tyler punches him, right? And then there's a brilliant shot where the narrator's like looking up at Tyler, right? And in this moment, they establish like a top-bottom relationship because the narrator doesn't hit Tyler again. The narrator looks directly into Tyler's eyes, danger close, and says something like, do it again. And so at that point, Tyler has now hit the narrator twice for the narrator's one hit. And so Fight Club begins.
We're not going to list all the examples.
I need to list one more because I think
are you about to do
it was our favorite. It had us absolutely howling watching this movie. Was the scene of Brad Pitt in the bathtub.
In a clawfoot bathtub in his old decrepit house. Let's be clear.
The narrator is chit-chatting with him in the bathroom while he takes a bath. And there's just this amazing screen cap. It probably will be the episode art of just Brad Pitt saying,
"You can't get married. I'm a 30-year-old boy."
We're a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need.
Wow, this is an on-the-nose fucking movie. And we already mentioned the spliced-in penis, but this is a movie with dozens of shirtless men, at least one penis that we see, and there is one woman in the entire film. We do get a quick shot of CGI titties, but the gaze, Gaze, of this film is very homoerotic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth pointing out Chuck Palahniuk, a gay man.
Really?
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't aware.
I had no idea.
Oh, well, shit, that makes sense.
Well,
You're telling me this movie was made by a gay man? That's unfathomable.
But I don't think that diminishes the point, because it's not as if the movie is generally received the way that Maddie is currently correctly describing it.
yeah. And it's shocking just because of our next point, which is that this movie, I think, has so many connections to the alt-right. And, you know, I just talked about Chuck Palahniuk on Joe Rogan. And I think that it's the type of movie that guys like that will unironically, like, not appreciate as a satire, but be like, that movie has a lot of ideas. And I think that the point that we're going to make here is that if you are a, like, classical Greece and Roman guy, a statuary guy, right, who believes that, like, the West was founded by ancient Greece and they did democracy and everything.
Athens and Jerusalem.
Athens, yeah. Like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
I mostly just take that as being like a racist dog whistle. But I will say in a public forum right now that I will not consider it a racist dog whistle if you go all the way with that belief and you actually do everything that the Greeks and Romans advocated for, including fucking your boys. Never having anything to do with women. And then that way I'll be like, you know what? This isn't a racist thing. Like, they actually do idolize these Greeks and Romans. And having a strong mentor-mentee relationship.
Listen, there are two kinds of people in this world. It could be an Erastes or it could be an Romanos. That's a joke for my ancient Greek knowers. Sometimes a mentor-mentee relationship is about rubbing your penis between the thighs of a young man to completion as he plays with your beard, and then you teach him geometry, okay? It's the foundations of Western civilization.
My wife, who is a cave-based healer, she tells me that thighs are not supposed to be wet. That'd be kind of cool. Ben Shapiro, I think, would be too powerful if he had kind of like an open collared shirt and like a lot of chest hair coming out. I think that'd be too powerful of Ben Shapiro.
I don't know. I don't want to get too off the beaten path here, but one thing that's extremely funny about the trad, alt-right, fash, whatever, like I've said on this pod, like I got my stupid PhD in classics and the algorithm shows me old shit. So I see pages with names like SPQR or Trad West or whatever the fuck. And in the comment sections, you will see the most annoying debates of all time. Because you got the Bronze Age pervert style fash who are like, yeah, man, it's about being gay with your boys and like total all in on the Greek side of things. And then you got the much more annoying Ben Shapiro style fash. We want a little bit of Greece, but we want like a lot of Judeo-Christian morality or whatever. And then you got the super, super like pagan Norse fash who are like the scariest. And you can see all of these people yell at each other in the most asinine debates you'll ever see in the world. Big let them fight energy. But it does kind of remind me, horseshoe theory might be real. Because what does a leftist hate more than anything else? A slightly different kind of leftist. And now we get to see the fash do it too around their racist history dog whistles.
Yeah. And with this mentor-mentee relationship, I should note that it does seem like whenever I've seen Chuck Palahniuk speak publicly about Fight Club, like when he did go on Joe Rogan, he mostly spoke to the importance of this mentor-mentee relationship, that he saw that as the central tenet of the movie. Because this movie brings up fatherhood a lot, that we have no father, we need to find a new dad. Like Chris Wade said on our Adult Swim episode, most stories are about finding a new dad or becoming your own dad. And he says that Tyler Durden becomes the surrogate father for these young men who are showing up at his doorstep. And in exchange for doing the grunt work, he's providing them knowledge. And Joe Rogan agreed and was like, yeah, that's how it works in, MMA. Your master is everything. You have to have a good relationship with them and they teach you, which I think is very funny because the idea that Tyler teaches these young men skills or like even how to fight is very arguable.
Don't see a lot of technique on the lessons in the fight clubs.
Yeah, they mostly just wail on each other. They're not really talking about how to become a better fighter, but he mostly just has a lot of rants about how you're the middle child of history. We have no Great Depression. The Great Depression is our lives. It just seems so often that in that middle part of the movie, when Tyler is just going off on his his rants or whatever, all of that stuff had a very Jordan Peterson vibe to it.
Because one of the things you might ask is, what role do men play in the socialization of children? And one thing that men really do seem to do with kids is to engage in rough and tumble play, to make it rough enough to be exciting, but not so rough that they get hurt, or that they stick their thumb in their dad's eye or something like that. And you can think of that from a Piagetian sense too, because it's a game. But imagine that if you're trying to figure out how to configure yourself around other people, if you haven't had that rough and tumble play, you don't really know where the boundaries of your body are. You don't know how much you can take and how much you can be stretched and how much you can be thrown around. And it seems to be very useful for teaching children about how to engage with the world and with other people in a physical way. And that's one of the physiological foundations for higher order socialization. It's very useful. I mean, I've often noted that children who haven't had the opportunity to engage in physical play, they're kind of awkward. They're not seated well in their body, and it's like they're kind of vague physically. Whereas the ones who've been twisted around and bent and thrown up in the air and wrestled in general, they're a lot more conscious of their limits and their abilities in their body, and they're also much more able to invite other kids to play. You can think about this with regards to dogs,
You could very much easily see Jordan Peterson saying something like, we are the middle children of history. We have no great wars, and our Great Depression is actually our lives.
Is Peterson Tyler or the narrator?
He's Tyler.
Okay, so who's Jordan Peterson's narrator?
All the young men who need to make their bloody beds.
And they're becoming Jordan Peterson at night.
Exactly.
Right. They've done too much kratom and can't sleep.
Yeah.
All of those incels, while sleeping, got tenure at the University of Toronto.
Oh, you can't sleep? Get over it. Why don't you take some benzos and go see some support groups?
Yeah, the most dated and unrealistic part of this entire film. The narrator goes to a doctor, asks for sleeping drugs, and isn't given them.
Yeah.
Again, the 2024 remake is very short because he just becomes an opioid addict in the first 30 minutes of the film.
I think Marla, too, we've mentioned, she is the chaos dragon of this movie to these young men.
She's proof that women are evil, they're bitches, they'll destroy your entire life.
And they keep you away from your boys.
Exactly.
And your best friend, Tyler Durden.
We had a great cult compound going on, and she ruined our clubhouse.
That is how that goes, though, because she's absent. She shows up almost immediately in the movie, and she's absent for just a bit. And the part she's absent for is the whole part where Fight Club and the Paper Street house are going awesome, and things are going great. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as, does he call her? How does she even end up back at the...
She has a suicide attempt, and narrator leaves the phone on, and then Tyler Durden picks it up and goes to save her from killing herself.
Yeah, and that's immediately when things start going to shit, and there starts being tension between the boys who were previously blissful. As soon as this strumpet, this creature ends up between them. Yes.
So let's just talk a little bit about the Chaos Dragon Marla for a second, because there is an instinct to think of her as a manic pixie dream girl, and I think that instinct is almost certainly wrong, because you could never imagine Zooey Deschanel saying a line like, "Oh, I haven't been fucked that hard since grade school. Like, I haven't been narwhaled that hard since grade school."
Incredible.
She is a very different figure.
Yeah, but I would say she has a relationship to the Manic Pixie Dream Girl because she is the inverse of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. She is the Tyler Durden to the Manic Pixie Dream Girl as Tyler Durden is to like a pathetic office yuppie.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because she is assertive and selfish.
Yeah, but because women and men have different prerogatives in society with how we're treated and stuff, the women's like, what if I just said fuck it to everything? It was very annoying. It's not a positive thing, but it's like what if I was doing everything opposite?
Yeah, I would maintain that she is only a force for chaos because, again, everything is topsy-turvy. She is actually rational. She asks questions like, why are you behaving this way? To the guy with split personalities, right?
Like tells him to get help.
Yeah, she tells him to get help. She rightfully is very confused when she's asked just to get on a bus that she doesn't know where it's going. Like, she brings a lot of big rationalism energy to our fundamentally irrational dudes beating up on one another in a squat house / terrorism project. The chaos she brings is just a modicum of thinking, and is Marla.
Yeah, she's trying to tame men, Ben, and that's what you don't get about this movie. She's trying to reimpose order and society on men who are breaking out of the Matrix.
This is what happens to dudes when they don't have a woman in their lives. They just squat and bake bombs.
Be bisexual, eat hot chip and lie. Yeah, well, that's the rest of it. Just want to say this in the recording. I don't know how it'll fit, but she's a Manic the Pixies dream girl. Am I right? Drop that where is my mind.
Fuck you.
I regret nothing.
Just to bring this back to the alt-right a little bit, I wanted to mention that the line, "You are not a snowflake," is mentioned both in the book and in the movie, and that one of the central characters of the book, The Game, about pickup artists that we spoke about on this pod, is a character who names himself Tyler Durden because he wants to embody sort of the same ideals as Tyler. There's also the far-right libertarian publication Zero Hedge, which writes under the collective pseudonym Tyler Durden, and whose tagline is, "On a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to 0." And it is so funny watching this in 2024, because the way that these men unalienate themselves from society is to essentially live like a live, laugh, fights lifestyle. They start their own business and they start building their empire, making soap and like selling it presumably at farmers markets.
Department stores, they show it in the movie.
Yeah, they show the distributor. Yeah.
So they're making homemade soap and selling it as the Paper Street Soap Company, which it's so funny because their prescription for unalienating themselves from society is the same as like a girl boss.
Yeah.
They have the exact same plan.
Honey, this soap is so nice. Where did you get this artisanal handmade soap? I got it from a shirtless, sweaty guy with a black eye and a split lip.
Okay,
just
to be
make
fair,
the best soap.
If like Fight Club Brad Pitt like came up to you and was like, "I use this soap," I'm like, okay, yeah, that's worth checking out. Like,
oh, you know, I would have bought that in college for sure.
It is a perfect echo, facsimile, I don't know what, penumbra, to use the fancy Latin word, of the alt-right and the Fight Club. Because in the same way that the decision to look at these problems that are real and exist, and then to make the decision to start fight clubs and then do terrorism, is about as logical as the alt-right identifying some problems and then being like, and the problem is the immigrants, the women, the people who are different, whatever, right?
Maddie taught me that.
Yeah, that's what we have on its connection to the alt-right. So
I'll say watching this movie was a lot more painful at Redacted than it was at 17. I'll tell you that. Imagining recovering from those injuries.
God. Yes. Yeah. Just a single one of those punches. When Brad Pitt gets beat up by like the sort of mafia club associated guy, as a kid, you're like, yeah, that's what I would do. I would just keep laughing like the Joker. And then, yeah, you watch this as like a man in his 30s and you're like, oh God, can you imagine the next morning?
It's like I stepped the wrong way and my knees fucked up.
Okay, so let's move on to class politics. I mean, we've kind of touched on it, but
there are none.
Yeah, there are none. That's exactly right. But as Ben pointed out, it's just funny because most alt-right guys are working class. And so as a result, they occasionally will get an idea right, but always pointed in the wrong direction, as you said.
They brush up against the object, but don't recognize what the object is, so they cannot properly form a coherent critique. So it just becomes like, I shouldn't be pumping gas. I should be like owning slaves or something, because that's... I wouldn't be a slave. I would be the one owning them.
Yeah.
I would be a warlord, not the peasant.
Yeah, I mean, the movie, the closest it gets to a bumbling class politics point is when Fight Club goes from being Fight Club to being Project Mayhem. So at first, it's white-collar cubicle fuckers, the bugmen, are the ones who are drawn to the Fight Club. But eventually, it's revealed that it's waiters. It's, we cook your food, we pump your gas, we clean your houses. It's all of the working classes that are being drawn to Project Mayhem. And one of the more reactionary parts of the movie is that it turns out poor people are kind of like a Borg-style collective hive mind, is what the movie seems to imply. The working classes are like zombies in this movie, shambling about. They're everywhere, they're lurking, and they are all worshippers of Tyler Durden. They are the real fascists in terms of supporting the strong man. It's something that the movie kind of ends up suggesting.
Yeah. And it suggests, too, that Project Mayhem and Fight Club becomes something of like a bureaucracy itself, right?
Yes.
Especially in the book, there's like the Ministry of Assault. I think there's like a bunch of like different sub-organizations.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're against a centralized party form able to exercise power?
Yeah, I'm just imagining a guy be like, I came for fighting and now I'm going to meetings. I got elected the vice president of pranks. I just wanted to get a little aggression out.
Fight Club DSA.
Yeah.
DSA Fight Club Caucus.
Yeah, there's that scene where someone is smoking and he's told to not smoke inside for good reason, mind you, because everything is dynamite. But I don't know, it did remind me a lot of the scene of his boss telling him to stop smoking in the office.
And even the language they use around Project Mayhem. He says, we got our first corporate sponsorship. As he's flying around the country when he's lost Tyler, he says Tyler had set up franchises everywhere. The language that he used, the conceptual metaphors are poisoned by corporations. Of course, it's a Gen X thing.
Okay, well, world systems theory. The new system will contain traces of the old one within it.
Yeah, and I think maybe Chuck Palahniuk is just pointing to this sense of irony in the group a little bit, that this used to be a club for guys to knock each other's teeth out, and now it's behaving a lot like the cubicle jobs they no longer work at. They're okay. So this was a very important difference I found between the book and the movie, which I do want to highlight because I think that it's actually a bad thing that David Fincher did. I think it actually worked much better in the book. So in the movie, their corporate sponsor is his office job. He has that moment where he goes to his white collar boss and threatens him. He says, I'll go to the newspapers with the knowledge of what I do here, and I'll tell them that I make this like horrible cost benefit analysis which results in tons of people dying because it's cheaper than a recall, right? Which is fine. Okay. But I just think that actually the book plot was far more powerful and insidious and maybe even like politically useful. What happens in the book is that he has two jobs, one as a projector and one as a waiter. And Tyler / him has been putting frames of pornography into hundreds or even thousands of movie reels that have been sent all around the country. Meanwhile, as a waiter, he's been peeing in the soups at the fanciest hotel in town. In the movie, this is presented as something he's just doing for shits and giggles. In the book, these are actually two very intentional acts meant to benefit him. Also, in the book, it's made clear that when Tyler pees in the soup, he puts his entire penis in the soup to do so. He doesn't pee from above the soup, but he scalds his penis by putting the entire thing in.
He's got a shy bladder, so that kind of like helps it stop.
I think this is a very important difference because in the book, these guys have created a poison pill for their employers at their jobs. Now, Tyler can go to the theater owner and tell him, hey, just so you know, I can go public with the knowledge that you sent out pornography in thousands of reels that are now untraceable and would be impossible to fix, and this would destroy your business in lawsuits. Or to the restaurant manager telling him, hey, I'm going to go public with the fact that I peed in everybody's soup and no one will ever dine here again because I've destroyed its reputation. And I think that that's actually like a much more politically powerful message, that one individual kind of has the ability to take down a small to medium sized business if they were so inclined. And so I do think it's a bit of a a misstep on the movie to switch it to this situation where, oh, you need to be in like a very specific job to have this level of political power as an individual.
Yeah, I think the reason the movie takes that, though, is because it's like, man, look how corporations just weigh life versus money, man. They don't care about safety.
I do wonder, too, if they were trying to like cover their ass with lawsuits or something, with like someone actually doing this and being like, yeah, I saw it in that Fight Club movie.
Yeah, another big absence of class politics in this is like, okay, the working classes have organized into cells across the country called Project Mayhem. What are they going to do with all of this power and organization that they have, all of this training, all of these bombs, all of this infrastructure and money? They're going to make the events of Horizon Zero Dawn happen, but without the robot dinosaurs. They're going to go full anarcho-primitivists. They are just going to wipe the slate clean. It is the absence of a project. It is just negation, right?
You had mentioned while we watched this movie that this movie has like the class politics of like a zombie movie.
Yeah, you aren't dreaming of liberation of all mankind. You're dreaming of like, damn, I wish I had autonomy in my life. That'd be cool. I bet if everything got destroyed, I could do stuff instead of having to go to my shitty job. Instead of, wow, maybe I can work my shitty job, but it would serve a purpose instead of just being miserable and everything being awful.
Exactly. That's the only way you can imagine a situation where you don't have to go to your shitty job. It's like, well, what if there was complete devastation of society?
What if I got back to hunting and gathering? That'd be pretty sick.
There's this scene, too, where he goes to the police station and he admits to the detective on his apartment bombing case that he is the culprit that they've been looking for. And at that moment, both his specific detective and two other cops tell him, wow, this is quite the sacrifice you're making, Tyler Durden. They reveal to him that they are actually in the Fight Club themselves.
I was yelling at the screen. I was so mad at this scene because it also does this asinine thing that like the low-level police officers are Project Mayhem cult members, but the bosses of the police are the normies or whatever. And I was like, no.
No, it makes perfect sense. I will fight you on this.
Okay, pop off.
Okay, what do cops love doing? They're like, I'm the sheepdog that protects the sheep. I have a Punisher logo and society hates me for it. I'm a man of violence and action and they scorn me for it. So it makes sense the low-level guys would be like, yeah, know what? Fuck this. Fuck society. Let's destroy it all and then I'll be king, like ruling over everyone. Because, I have taken a life or whatever, or I know how to shoot a gun. Because look, cops, I've heard enough stories, especially from my dad. I'm like, no, they're all awful people. And that's how they think. It makes complete and total sense. They would be right on with that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have cops being like, oh, hey, what's that weird, 3% tattoo you got on there? What's going on with that?
Yeah, I know. I guess I get more hung up on the ideological contradictions than a cop was. If you think I am the sheepdog that keeps society safe, which is why I must destroy society.
Yeah, because society has scorned them and does not appreciate them. Society is keeping them on the leash. So what do? They bite the hand that keeps them on the leash. Look, no one said cops are ideologically coherent.
I think they would find the dog analogy troubling.
All right, cool. Should we move on to nihilism? Okay, so nihilism. This is a movie where you take your tooth out of your mouth and you throw it down the sink and you go, damn, whatever, man. Whatever, never mind. I think that though, this movie does speak to an empowered sense of nihilism, the strength of the individual, the impact that you could have on your world with the smallest amount of fearlessness and cooperation.
Yeah. The narrator is subjected to 2 tests by Tyler throughout the film. The first is the chemical burn on his hand, where the narrator's instincts are to practice mindfulness, are to do meditation. And Tyler yells at him and says, no, you need to be in the moment. You need to stare the pain directly in the face. Absolutely no escapism. I mean, ironic because the Fight Club is kind of a form of escapism, but whatever. They wouldn't say that. It's a fool who looks for coherence in this film. But there's another test where it's like really lean into the nothingness. When they're in the car, take your hands off the wheel. It's all out of your control. It's all meaningless. There is nothing. You have the edgy goth fucking Marla character say her philosophy of life is that she could die any day. She might die any day, but the tragedy was that she didn't. The movie lays it on pretty thick, but all of this matters for the climax of the movie when the narrator vanquishes Tyler Durden when he finally lets go and attempts an act of suicide, right? That is how he beats his split personality disorder in the end. It is by embracing the nothingness.
Yeah.
He believes in nothing. He believes in nothing, Lebowski, nothing.
Anything on the nihilism of the movie?
Okay, so I read this paper called Sacred is the Flame because all of the most annoying fucking people on Twitter had it in their bio. And it's this cool, interesting paper on narco-nihilism that a guy wrote. And half of it really interesting because it's describing acts of resistance in concentration camps and like extermination camps of people like rising up, killing their guards, how people stood against their guards and the systems they employed. And then it makes the argument that, okay, well, we live in an all-encompassing surveillance state that we cannot escape in any way, shape, or form. So therefore, organizing is useless. All of that dumb. You should just try negation and like kill people or blow stuff up. And just watching this movie, I'm like, this is like if anarcho-nihilism was actually a real ideology that lots of people cohered to.
Just gonna throw a little disclaimer here. Remember, Shuffle does not support stochastic terrorism. That should cover our base
dumb.
legally.
Yeah, but that is the thing, right? Is like, if you were willing to give up your attachment to your own life, you would actually become like an incredibly powerful figure, right? Because you no longer fear the consequences. Let's talk a little bit. We'll finish off here with they talk about the style of the movie, right? Just as a piece of cinema.
It's cool.
Yeah, this was fun to watch. I went into this being like, okay, what sort of takes am I going to have? What am I going to learn about this movie on the second run? Am I going to feel this way about its politics or not? And then just watching it, I really was just, my only thoughts were like, this is fun. For some reason, I'm really attached now to the scene where the narrator's on the phone and Tyler is just playing with nunchucks in the background.
Karate Brad Pitt is incredible.
Okay, it drags a little bit, especially if you know the plot and all, you've been exposed to all these ideas before. The last like half hour I found is kind of dragging, but it's so much fun. This movie is fun.
I forgot just like how funny Brad Pitt is in it. Not his lines and stuff, but just like physically funny. Like with the karate, just hilarious. Absolutely.
10 charisma character.
And I want to stress, I think I said this earlier, I want to stress that I'm not a fucking film school guy. I don't know shit about shots or whatever, but this movie is so dynamic. The camera is moving around in interesting ways. We see a character from the back, a character from the front is moving around, like just the blocking where people are. It's just a feast for the eyes. And looking over my notes, Brad Pitt's costumes, like he's got the big 70s collar over a red leather jacket. He's got the grotty house coat with the neon coffee cups on it. By the end of the movie, he's wearing army combats with a tank top and then like a bomber jacket with a fur collar. The fit is impeccable because this movie looks cool. Also, as I've already said, so many smokers in this movie, and smoking is another thing that's cool.
One thing I've always loved about Chuck Palahniuk, and I think that David Fincher took up this part of his writing very well, is his technical descriptions. Chuck Palahniuk loves to describe to you like how a projector works, or how a firing pin works, or how to flood your boss's house with dye. In his other book, the one about the Messiah or whatever, he like describes how to get ketamine from a vet. He's a very big fan of describing technical or like scam processes. And I just find that David Fincher is the perfect director for that, because I think that he also loves doing that. Like if you saw that Assassin movie that came out recently, The Killer, there's a lot of that in it. But it's just like a stylistic feature of the movie that I really enjoyed. They're telling you how the cigarette burns on the projector works. Like there's a lot of explaining to you what a technical process is like. And this is a book full of descriptions of like how to make napalm.
I had an idea for a business. It's not really a business because it's an anarchist commune. Pedestrian. So I don't know if we're motivated by profit per se, but you get a group of anarchist farmers. They do farm to table, they do recipes, and then they publish a cookbook that's called the Anarchist Cookbook. Abuse this SEO, but it's a literal cookbook, right? It's the other one. It is an anarchist cookbook, damn it.
That's pretty good.
Sorry, that's such a stupid fucking bit. Sorry.
You just actually, like, you know how the book describes business ideas? You just did that exact same thing. It was a postmodern touch that you just put in.
I'm sorry. This is 3.5 hours past my bedtime normally.
Yeah, it's late for all of us. Like, I worked a full day today. I'm kind of digging it. This is kind of like a childhood puberty era sleepover where you're like, we have been drinking sodas all night. It's 1:30 a.m.
We've just watched Fight Club.
I want to talk about the ending.
Yeah, the twist.
Well, yeah, both the twist and the actual ending. So the twist, as we said, and as you all know, is that Tyler Durden is the narrator. When he sleeps, he becomes Tyler Durden. And having rewatched this film recently, the twist is handled so fucking well. This is such a hack, stupid thing to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways. You notice so many hints on the rewatch, especially with the interactions with Marla. That's what I was mostly zoomed in on and hyper-focusing on and how they handle it. But you have this twist around identity and just the details that are in this film. Like, do you know what the tagline of the narrator's soulless condominium is? His condominium has a generic name, and the tagline is a place to be a person. Or a place to be somebody, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in this movie that's about identity, who is he? He lives in the soulless place, a place to be someone, which is what he's trying to do.
Yeah, that's what makes a twist good, though, right? Is a twist is unsatisfying when it just happens and you're like, oh, it was all a dream, right? Mm-hmm. What makes a twist satisfying is like you kind of knew the entire time but didn't realize it, and it's communicated extremely well. There's a lot of nice touches. I like that when Tyler has sex with Marla, he like semi-recalls it because it's a sort of striking enough experience for him to at least dream that he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot in the book where at one point he spells it out pretty explicitly. He says, you never see Tyler and Marla in the same room, which is no big deal. You never see me or Zsa Zsa Gabor in the same room, but that doesn't mean we're the same person. And I'm like, okay, you probably could have left that one out.
There's some clever stuff, like you pointed out with the phone, or how, like, you know, one of them will sort of physically exit the scene and like I think usually the narrator and then Tyler kind of like walk in, like with the phone thing.
The great scene where Tyler's in the basement, narrator's at the top of the stairs, and then Marla's in the room above, and there's two conversations happening kind of in parallel, but without Tyler and Marla ever being in the same space.
Yeah, I love that line when Brad Pitt comes downstairs after having sex and is like, whoa, man, you have some fucked up friends.
I mean, JD said it best. He's a 10 out of 10 charisma character. He maxed out that stat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the ending, right? So, book ending first. We're turning up the nihilism knob to 11, right? In the book, the bombs don't go off because why the fuck would they? They're a bunch of pencil pushers LARPing as terrorists. Of course they don't know how to actually do this for real. Mm-hmm. The bombs don't go off. The narrator does his act of attempted suicide, wakes up in the hospital, and Project Mayhem is still going. The nurses and orderlies are telling him, excellent work, Mr. Durden. The narrator fails, catastrophically, categorically, and that's how the book fucking ends. He cannot escape. Chuck Palahniuk, nihilism. The movie ends, similar thing. He shoots himself, which vanquishes Tyler. The bombs do go off. The buildings are coming down in a controlled demolition, but these Hollywood sickos had to turn my Fight Club, my meditation on anarcho-nihilism, into a dang love story. And the corniest line of the entire film is the last line of the film when the narrator says to Marla,
You met me at a very strange time in my life.
God damn, that line, that is something Zooey Deschanel would say in a movie. That one was tough, for sure. And it is rescued by that excellent Pixies drop, but
yes,
brutal stuff. You met me at a very interesting time in my life is like a Marvel line or something. Like,
yes, as soon as Tyler is gone, he is reverted to the soy. Almost instantaneously. Actually, having said that, now I like the line.
I thought it was the sickest shit ever when I saw it at like 17.
Of course. That's what makes it so bad.
Yeah. I did also see it with like a troubled woman with whom I was like completely obsessed. So that may have been may have had.
Yeah, I should also note that there is a Chinese ending of the film, which the state did, which involves them picking up Tyler before his bombing and committing him to a mental asylum. The end.
Incredible. Giordano told that to me. I assumed it must have been a joke, but this is not a bit. This is real. The Chinese title translates vaguely to, all right, boys, you've had your fun.
We have two more things to say. First, I want to mention quickly a topic that seems to come up a lot in the 90s, that this movie has a lot of postmodern touches. The frames of Tyler throughout the movie are a meta wink, right? Mm-hmm. Tyler, as a projectionist, does this to movies, and now he's seemingly done this to the movie that you're watching now. It's insomnia creeping into his life.
It is extremely meta and fourth wall breaking, right? The first line of the movie might as well be record scratch. Yup, that's me with a gun in my mouth. Which, you know, cliches are cliches for a reason, okay? At one time, this blew people's fucking minds, and it does really in.
I'm going to do a little Adam Friedland impression here and be like, what do they call that again? In media res?
In medias res. But.
Oh, damn it. I knew it.
Okay, so I have a very, very tortured metaphor. This movie is actually secretly about coming to terms with being trans. Okay, so at the start, narrator can't sleep, feeling something's wrong, it's awful. And so he goes to seek solace with others, and since he's been assigned male at birth, he goes and tries to connect with people through like a traditionally feminine coded thing. And everything's going right. He's like, oh, this works, until Marla Singer comes and everything's ruined again. This is when he realizes he's trans, and he's like, oh, fuck. Oh, no, this can't be me. Oh, geez, fuck. Why does this have to be me? Mm-hmm. So then he represses. How does he do that? Yeah, I'm going to be hyper masculine and just kind of get rid of this. But nope, keeps bubbling to the surface. And how does the movie end? Only when Tyler's gone and he's accepted Marla.
And he shoots the hyper masculine projection he's built of himself.
Yeah, that is my hottest.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd like to point out in that vein that simultaneously, Bitch Chit Bob arrived at his involuntary transition to female by attempting to be hypermasculine. He did too much steroids, and it made him that way. It gave him incredible gyno and like turned him into Bitch Chit Bob.
Yeah.
JD, I need to correct you. His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
If only he had made a projection of himself that was more feminine, like a Skylar Durden figure, you know?
On a long enough timeline, everybody's testosterone level drops to 0.
I fuck like you want to fuck. I'm bred like you want to be bred. All right, just some random thoughts that we had watching the movie. One, real estate was so cheap in the 90s that Tyler squats in like what would be the nicest house of anyone you know. I mean, we know that like, okay, it's unrealistic that the friends live in a big apartment, you know? We didn't even question the fact that like, oh yeah, you could just squat in like the house with the highest ceilings you've ever seen in your life.
The movie takes place in Detroit. That can just...
Also, funny note that, yeah, this movie performed so poorly at the box office that 20th Century Fox's studio head, Bill Mechanic, had to resign.
Hell yeah.
Which is very funny. It's like the last lurch of Project Mayhem was to get the 20th Century Fox studio head fired. But it did find success on the home video rental market. As we all know, DVD sales were so high that it became one of the highest selling videos in 20th Century Fox's history. It was a cult classic. Another reason why I think it belongs kind of in the 2000s is that most people watched it in the 2000s. A lot of people were breaking the first and second rules of Fight Club. A lot of word of mouth happening for this movie.
A lot of posters witnessed.
Yeah. I was thinking about Hobbs from Calvin and Hobbes as Calvin's Tyler Durden, you know, in this universe. I play Calvin Ball the way you want to play Calvin Ball. You know?
I want to throw out a great 2000s reference and also plug one episode from our backlog. JD came on the show to talk about 2000s emo music, and the music video for Taking Back Sundays, Cute Without the E, open parentheses, cut from the team, close parentheses, is entirely a Fight Club adaptation. And the woman of the song that the song is singing about is implied to be Marla. And it is a work of art.
Not the Flavor Flav one.
No, that's You're So Last Summer, dude. Yeah, one thing that really jumped out to me is just like a kind of random grab bag observation is just the fact that everyone is at least as lonely and alienated as they were in 1999, 2000, but now we don't even get consumption. Like, I was imagining the inevitable remake that we get of this, like the single serving Friends observation on an airplane. They talk about the absurdity of all of this without going that one extra step and being like, and it's incredibly wasteful and polluting and gives us microplastics in our bodies or whatever, which will inevitably happen in the remake.
One quick echo in the culture, by the way, I just think it's funny that the sense of relief that the people in this movie describe they get from fighting, like, oh, I feel like a primal power with my body. I feel confident with my body that I'm able to fight if I needed to, and it gives me a connection to other humans. It's so funny because now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like a massively popular sport, and everybody I know that does it regularly, this is the same feeling that they describe getting from it, which is it just feels good to learn a skill and feel powerful in my own body, which is something Joe Rogan said in his interview with Czech Palahniuk as well. So kind of a funny echo in the culture here. And so yeah, closing thoughts.
Fight Club rocks.
Fight Club rules.
Yes.
Because it's fun. It's cool. It's a good time. Okay. Is it as good as the Maltese Falcon? I don't know. I've never seen the Maltese Falcon, but I've seen this movie 4 times.
In a way, the Maltese Falcon is about how an object won't make you happy.
And let's finish off with post-structuralism. It is weird because I think you're presented with a couple options, which the first is to take this movie seriously and everything it has to say about the world at face value, which is probably how you take it in as a teenager. And this is wrong. Watching the movie this way is wrong, right? Because we learn the narrator himself is a hypocrite. They make fun of that underwear model on the bus, and he's like, is this what a man is supposed to look like? Well, that's what your projection of your idealized form looks like. Yeah. And no matter how enlightened you become by the end of the film, Brad Pitt keeps looking just as pretty as he did at the beginning. Even Jared Leto, who has his face destroyed, by the end of it is fully back in twink form. For as much as this movie is nihilistic, there's a lot of very pretty actors in this movie. To me, the only other option is to take it as satire, and you have to ignore parts of this movie that actually are sincere and take it as like a very weird satire.
I would say don't even take it as satire. Just take it as an observation. Just like, yeah, this is the weird, confused politics of Gen X men who don't really know what the fuck they're doing. It isn't making a critique or anything. It's just like, yeah, this is what's going on with them. This is what's bouncing around in there. It doesn't offer any actual solutions or anything. It's just like, yeah, this is what's up. Don't try to assign greater meaning to it. Just treat it like a David Attenborough nature documentary.
Yeah. I saw a post one time that was like, if you want to understand millennial men in their 30s at a very, very deep level, watch 90s Simpsons and you will just understand them better. And Fight Club, like Manny just said, this is like, anybody want to check in on the Gen X men? Just pop Fight Club in the DVD player and you'll see how they're feeling and do it.
Yeah.
Well, now, post-structuralism, right, for those in our audience who don't know, right, we should define it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I guess I just assumed that everybody has listened to our episodes.
Well, okay, I'll help. Well, post-structuralism is what happens at the end of the movie. They blow up all the buildings and they physically fall off the screen. And after that, there's no more structures. And in that way...
But they're standing in a structure.
They're posting up in that structure.
Oh, shit.
But post-structuralism believes that the audience's interpretation of the art is also a key component of the art, in that how it is received. And how it is received is unique to each person, but it's also an important facet of the art's meaning. What effect will this have on a given person? And this movie, yeah, it's interesting because everybody receives it the same way. They take different things from it. You know, if you're a high school boy, you might think this is the perfect ideology, sincerely. If you're me or something, you'll think, oh, this is an interesting critique of consumerism. If you're Maddie, you're like, oh, this is a great trans allegory.
Okay, I said that was torture.
If you're JD, you're like, look at all the cool guns in this movie.
Yeah, you know, I think at the time it would have been actually very difficult to get an AR-10 in carbine length, but
Ben, what did you take away from the movie?
Fight Club rules, dude. I'm here to have a good time, man.
This movie is about going, damn, that's fucked, man.
Yeah. So many times watching this, I was just clacking my fingers like bars, bro. Bars.
Oh, sorry. No, here's what I took from the movie. I am a fucking moron that I never occurred to me that Chuck Palahniuk might be gay. I'm like, this movie was made by just a straight dude who rules. This guy fucking gets it. We are Austin Powers. I can't believe Liberace was gay. Women liked it. Like, what? Pussy crushing Palahniuk? You gotta be kidding me.
Mark Wahlberg in Fight Club. Hey, sticking feathers up your butt doesn't make you a chicken, okay? Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. The first rule about Remember Shuffle is you do have to talk about Remember Shuffle.
Yes.
The second rule about Remember Shuffle is you have to leave a comment for Remember Shuffle.
Okay, this is all parody. I want you to reenact that scene on the highway, okay? You're driving your friends around, you're flooring it, you're going into the oncoming lane, and the Remember Shuffle is bumping. And you say, like, yeah, I turned the podcast off, and I redirect the car back into the right lane if you hit subscribe to your friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me one episode you want to listen to before you die.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the attempted hate crime on the Asian American convenience store owner.
Oh, God.
Okay, now we can get Mark Wahlberg back into this.
Fuck.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a great thing where, okay, I guess it could be satire, but these guys ostensibly are like, we just fucking saved this kid's life. He's going to go become a vet now. And it's like, no, you just added to the trauma he already has. Now he just won't be able to sleep at night because he'll be thinking about the gun to the back of his head.
Yeah.
He's not going back to vet school.
Yeah, you think you like red pilled him. You think he sees the truth now. In fact, he is just traumatized.
Yeah. Now every time he takes out the garbage, he has a nervous breakdown. You did not have the effect that you thought you had on him.
You did not lead him out of Plato's cave. You just went down into the cave and beat the shit out of him and then left him in the cave.
Okay, a little bit of homework for everyone. I want you to go up to a complete and total stranger and tell them about Remember Shuffle.
Yeah, it's actually incredibly difficult to challenge someone to listen to your podcast. So you might have to try hard.
Yeah. There you go, Maddie. That's a great one.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Madeline and JD, for joining us. Is there anything you guys want to plug? We've had people plug the library. We've had people plug
Warhammer
40K. All right, no, Warhammer the Old World.
Okay, I'll take this point, plug Warhammer 40K. It's cool. It's fun. It's great if you just feel like setting money on fire.
Yeah, something of a fight club of your own. Okay, so there's a plug. Please check out Warhammer 40K. JD, anything to plug?
Please listen to Maddie. She's the smartest person in this room and most rooms.
JD has plugged another guest. Yeah. These plugs are becoming a little postmodern for my taste. You're darn postmodern plugs.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
He was full of pep. Must have had his grande latte enema.